Elvis heard his own voice coming from a guitar box on the pavement while he was strolling down Beale Street. It wasn't a recording, though. The 16-year-old boy had no idea that his life would soon undergo a permanent transformation. It was a muggy Tuesday afternoon in July 1976 in Memphis. Elvis chose to take one of his infrequent unannounced strolls through downtown because he was getting restless at Graceland, Memphis. He was dressed simply in a black shirt and sunglasses in an attempt to fit in with the others. Something halted Elvis in his tracks as he turned the corner into Beale Street, the center of Memphis's music scene. A voice so sweet and sincere that it sent shivers down his spine was singing "Love Me Tender." The voice was from a scrawny teen sitting on the pavement with his legs crossed, a brick wall with his back to it. The boy's clothes were obviously too big for his small physique, and his shoulder-length dark hair appeared to have been unwashed for days. He had practiced for many hours, and his guitar was old and worn out with scratches and wear marks. All that didn't matter, though, as the child sang. The heartfelt element that had made Elvis famous was still present in his voice. However, it was different in some way. A bare agony that betrayed genuine adversity. No one on the streets knew the boy's true name, but it was Michael Chen. Everybody just referred to him as Guitar Mike. After aging out of foster care on his 16th birthday, he had nowhere to go and had been living on Memphis streets for 8 months. All Michael had left was music. 3 years prior, his foster parents had given him the guitar in the hopes that it would help him stay out of trouble. When he had nothing else, they never thought it would end up being his lifeline. Michael would play for whatever change passers-by dropped in his guitar case every day while sitting on the same corner of Beale Street. He could make enough for a bottle of water and a sandwich on a good day. He never stopped playing, even though he went hungry on terrible days. The only thing that gave him a sense of belonging to something greater than himself was music. Suffering. As Michael concluded "Love Me Tender" and started playing the beginning chords of "Can't Help Falling in Love," Elvis stood perhaps 20 feet away, concealed behind a small group of visitors who had come to hear the youngster. Something stirred in Elvis's chest. This wasn't just a young person performing money cover songs. This individual had comprehension. The essence of the song, who experienced each word he sang. Only idiots rush in, according to wise folks. Michael was engrossed in the music, singing with his eyes closed. Elvis approached and took out his wallet. Though none of them recognized the man in sunglasses right away, the tiny throng respectfully parted as they all recognized something about him. Elvis threw a $100 into the guitar case as Michael got to the chorus. When Michael saw the money, his eyes opened. He typically made less than $100 in 2 weeks. His fingers froze on the guitar strings as he looked up to thank whoever had been so kind. That face was unmistakable even with the sunglasses. The small smile, the unique jawline, the groomed hair that had appeared on 1,000 magazine covers. Whispering, "Keep playing, son," Elvis whispered. "You've got something special there." Michael could hardly grasp his guitar due to his trembling hands. Elvis answered, "You're just a guy who enjoys good music," squatting down to Michael's level. Still in disbelief, the boy muttered, "What's your name?" "Michael. Michael Chen. I can't believe this is real." Elvis turned to face the small group of people that had gathered. Then back at Michael. "You hungry, Michael?" Untrusting his voice, the child nodded. "Then hurry up. You can tell me your story once we get you something to eat." Elvis guided Michael to a tiny cafe off B Street and assisted him in packing up his guitar. Mrs. Rodriguez, the proprietor, had known Elvis since he was a young boy and was accustomed to his sporadic unannounced visitor visits. Over milkshakes and hamburgers, Michael shared his story with Elvis. The foster homes, his sense of alienation, and the music that sustained him when everything else failed. Michael uttered the words, "I know your song saved my life," quietly. "I would listen to 'Love Me Tender' during my lowest points and realize that someone knew what it was like to be hurt." Elvis sat quietly and listened. He recognized himself in this young man's suffering and recalled his own early years, the destitution, the sense of alienation, and the music that had served as an escape. Elvis said, "You know what I hear when you sing? I hear someone who has experienced the blues." "Michael, you cannot pretend that. It cannot be learned via a teacher or a book. You must experience it." Michael was completely taken aback by what Elvis said next. "Next week, I'll be recording some new music in the studio. How would you like to arrive?" "With me?" "Not as a stand-in or anything. What you sound like with the right gear and skilled musicians is what I want to hear." Michael was sure he was having hallucinations as he gazed at Elvis. "Are you serious?" "Extremely serious. I do have one requirement, though." Michael felt a heavy heart. A catch was always present. "You must swear to me that you will leave the streets. You can stay at a place I know. Kind folks who will look after you while we decide what to do with your music next." 3 days later, Michael ended up in Sun's studio, where Elvis had recorded his debut single. He was tidy and dressed in brand new clothing that truly fit, and he was carrying a guitar that was more expensive than anything he had ever seen. At first, the session musicians were dubious. They didn't want to squander Elvis's studio time, whether he was a street child or not. However, the room became silent when Michael began to sing. His voice, recorded with the assistance of professional musicians. The studio-caliber equipment was simply amazing. He merged a contemporary viewpoint that was wholly original with the unadulterated brilliance of early Elvis. Michael sang Heartbreak Hotel with such emotion and pain that Elvis got chills as he stood in the control room and watched through the glass. The producer responded, "That boy has it. He has plenty of it, whatever it is." Michael said something that drew Elvis's attention during a break-in recording. "Pay attention. I've also been creating songs, Mr. Presley. Simple ideas that come to me while I'm playing in the street." "Call me one," Elvis said. Taking up his guitar, Michael sang a song he had written, "Memphis Rain." Concerned. Loneliness, about looking out from a street corner at the world, and about finding hope in the simplest acts of compassion. The studio was completely silent after he was done. Slowly, Elvis said, "Michael, that is a smash, not simply a song." Elvis astonished himself and everyone else with his choice. He made the decision to record Memphis Rain with Michael as a duet. Something that neither of them could have accomplished on their own was captured in the song. Michael's unadulterated emotion merged with Elvis Presley's iconic voice to create something completely fresh and impactful. After they had completed recording, Elvis looked gravely at Michael. "I would like you to give my question some serious thought. What would you think if I helped you land a recording deal? Not as a protege of Elvis Presley, but as the artist Michael Chen." Michael's eyes were watering as he gazed at Elvis. He had been sleeping indoors 6 months prior, questioning whether he would ever have a chance at a genuine life. The rock and roll king was now giving him a chance at a future he had never dared to imagine. "You're doing this for me, but why?" did Michael ask. After a prolonged period of silence, Elvis spoke with an earnestness that took the room by surprise. "Because somebody did it for me once." A poor Tupelo child with a voice and a dream was taken on by a guy named Sam Phillips. Additionally, something in your voice reminded me of the reason I fell in love. In the first place, love for music. Elvis's duet with the street musician rapidly became well known in Memphis and later nationwide. Memphis Rain was an immediate success. More significantly, though, it started a movement. American musicians began to take notice of street musicians in a way they had never done before. Record labels started looking at subway platforms and bus stops. The music industry was reminded by the Elvis and Michael story that talent could be discovered anywhere. On the Billboard charts, Michael Chen's debut solo album peaked at number 3. He started a charity using his success to give homeless youngsters music training and instruments. However, he would never forget the Tuesday afternoon on Beale Street when a fortuitous meeting transformed everything. In interviews, Michael stated, "People ask me what it was like to meet Elvis. In actuality, though, it had little to do with meeting a famous person. It was about a person deciding to assist another person after noticing something in them. That's what made that day very magical." On the street corner, Elvis preserved the original recording of Michael singing, "Love Me Tender." He wanted to preserve the unadulterated moment before it changed, so he had one of his bodyguards covertly record it from across the street. That recording was discovered at Graceland among Elvis Presley's most valuable belongings years after his death. It was accompanied by a note that said, "This is what." The goal of music is to sound authentic and heartfelt. The location where Elvis found Michael Chen is now marked by a modest plaque on Beale Street. But more significantly, the anecdote reminds us that sometimes just paying attention to those around us can have the greatest impact. The Elvis and Michael anecdote serves as a reminder that not all talent requires a stage and a limelight. Sometimes it involves waiting for someone to listen while sitting on a street corner. That day, Elvis may have strolled by. He may have moved on after enjoying the performance. Rather, he decided to pause, pay attention, and take action. He changed more than one young man's life in the process. He reminded us all that we possess the ability to. No matter where we find the gifts in others, we must acknowledge and cultivate them. Because you never know who could be waiting for someone to believe in them while sitting on a street corner and playing their heart out. The fame and celebrity don't have the magic. When one person chooses to support another in pursuing their goals, that is when the magic happens. And sometimes, all it takes to make a big difference is that. We learn from this amazing true story of music's power and compassion that talent can be found in the most unlikely places. For more incredible stories of how music superstars have transformed lives, please subscribe if this story touched you. No matter where they're coming from, share this video with someone who needs to hear that their ambitions are important. Have you ever seen a situation when someone's generosity transformed someone else's life? Tell us in the remarks below.